So picture this. Every single afternoon, literally without fail, a German Shepherd named Rocky ran straight to the exact same bridge in his town. And I mean, he wasn't running around sniffing things, he wasn't trying to play fetch. He would just sit there for hours, locked in this totally eerie, repetitive routine, just staring intently down at the water below. Now, his family, they were completely baffled. Sure, dogs love routines, we all know that, but this was different. It was an absolute obsession, and for the longest time, nobody had a single clue what was driving it. And that brings us to the real central mystery here. Why did he keep coming back? For his family, it was like this giant, unsolvable puzzle. They just watch him sit there in quiet vigilance, staring at the river, totally unable to figure out what had him so fiercely captivated. This went on day after day, and honestly, it felt like they were never going to get an answer. That is, until one rainy afternoon finally broke the pattern and completely changed everything. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into the dog who kept running to the same bridge. What we're about to unpack is a truly fascinating timeline that perfectly captures the sheer power of canine intuition. It's one of those stories that starts with a quirky habit, but ends up proving without a doubt that our four-legged friends are tuning into the world in ways we can barely even comprehend. Let's dive in. Okay, phase 1, the 2-week mystery. Now, this didn't just happen overnight. This strange behavior actually started a full 2 weeks earlier. And it's super important to realize that Rocky's behavior wasn't just a one-off thing, or a dog getting temporarily distracted by a passing squirrel. This was a sustained, incredibly deliberate action that stretched on for nearly 14 days. Just look at the sheer precision of this routine. It's actually staggering. Day 1, day 7, day 14. Every single day at exactly 5 p.m., Rocky made his pilgrimage to that bridge. His owner would be standing there, calling and calling his name, just trying to get him to come back home. But Rocky, he completely ignored it. He was laser-focused, returning to the exact same spot on the bridge, day in and day out, like absolute clockwork. Naturally, the locals and bystanders who saw him sitting there day after day just assumed he was waiting for someone. I mean, it's a classic image, right? The fiercely loyal dog waiting for his owner to come back. But here's the catch. Nobody knew who he could possibly be waiting for. His family was right there with him. So who on earth was the intended recipient of all this intense loyalty? Which brings us to the turning point, a clue in the water. After nearly 2 weeks of just quiet staring, things suddenly kicked into high gear. One afternoon, Rocky's silent vigil completely shattered. He just started barking loudly, this really frantic, urgent sound, and running back and forth along the railing. His owner quickly ran after him, feeling that immediate shift in energy. Rocky finally stopped right at the edge and stared down at the river. There was something floating in the water. At this point, Rocky absolutely took matters into his own paws. First, the intense barking to alert his owner. Then, literally without a second of hesitation, he leaped straight into the shallow water. And third, he clamped his jaws onto this floating object to drag it out. He wasn't just waiting anymore. He was taking action. So as Rocky drags this object out of the water, the pacing of the whole moment just slows right down. His owner leans in to get a closer look at what caused all this crazy commotion. And it was a small backpack. Rocky is just standing beside it, barking even louder now, almost like he's desperately trying to communicate the absolute urgency of what he just fished out of the river. Instantly, the stakes shoot up. The owner cautiously opens this completely waterlogged bag to see what's inside. And the very first thing they pull out? A child's jacket. You can probably imagine that sudden, ice-cold feeling of dread just creeping into the moment. Because clearly, this wasn't just some discarded piece of trash. This belonged to someone very young. But it was the final clue tucked inside that backpack that changed the entire trajectory of this story. Hidden away in there was a family photo. In a matter of seconds, finding that picture instantly turned what seemed like a weird, quirky dog habit into a very real, very urgent missing person investigation. And that launches us right into phase 3, the missing boy. Realizing a child was at the center of this, Rocky's owner knew exactly what they had to do. They immediately grabbed their phone and called the police to report these really alarming findings. When the police actually arrived on the scene, some incredibly grim facts quickly came to light. Using that family photo, authorities were able to rapidly figure out exactly who the backpack belonged to. And it turned out a young boy from that family had disappeared near this very same river days earlier. But here is the most tense part of the whole thing. Official search teams had already been out there, they had actively combed the entire area, and they hadn't found a single trace of him. Okay, moving to our final phase, rescue and resolution. Back at the bridge, which is now completely swarming with police and rescuers, Rocky decides to take charge once again. He suddenly starts pulling with all his might, aggressively dragging the rescuers away from the spot where the bag was found and pulling them straight toward the opposite side of the river. So the rescue team just trusts the dog. They follow him deep into the brush. And as they're pushing through these really thick bushes on the opposite bank, they all just freeze. Through the total silence of the woods, they hear a faint cry. Just a tiny, small voice calling out, "Help!" They rushed forward, and you guys, there he was, the missing boy. He was freezing cold, incredibly exhausted from everything he'd been through, but against all staggering odds, he was alive. Honestly, the sheer relief in that moment for the rescuers, the owner, and obviously his family is just unimaginable. As the rescuers were tending to him, this exhausted little boy looked up, saw Rocky standing there, and this huge smile spread across his face. He looked right at the German Shepherd and whispered, "I knew you'd find me." And right on cue, Rocky walked over and just gently rested his head against the boy. His 2-week mission was finally complete, which leaves us with this really profound thought. Sometimes dogs don't just hear us, they hear the things we can't. Think about it. Rocky didn't just notice a pattern, he sensed a life that needed saving, right when highly trained human search teams came up totally empty. It really makes you wonder about those unseen, powerful connections we share with the animals in our lives, doesn't it? Like,